Thank you everyone for showing up on short notice. Usually I don't really even give people even notice at all that I'm about to do a live stream, but here we are and you are here and that's all great. And we also have David Lotherington with us. Now, first of all, I want to introduce myself. I'm James Rink and this is Super Soldier Talk. The topic of this particular discussion today is going to be about super soldiers, some MyLab experiences. I guess now we just call them SSP, sort of gotten away from the term MyLab or military abduction. So today we have David Lotherington, who is an Akashic reader, healer, and telepath, and he's able to do channel communications with non-terrestrial beings. He currently resides in Nova Scotia, and that's in Canada for people who don't know where that is. He's been involved with programs his entire life, beginning at least 4 years old and up. He recalls being trained at Area 51, where he first met Peter the Insider. And he also remembers being in a facility that trained his shape-shifting abilities, in which I was also a participant of. He recalls experiences as a super soldier in Kruger and has done training missions with zombies and vampires. We will also go into some of his experiences of how they neuralized let me get this word right, neuralized his memories in the SSP. Like in the movie Men in Black, they had the little neuralizer pen that wiped memories. So, and the Men in Black are real. They're actually, that's Division 6 of the ACIO, by the way. At the end of the show, David will try to bring in someone. I don't know. You want to talk about the mystery guest, or should we just?
We'll see who comes through because
Okay.
sometimes others come through if it's a higher priority.
Okay. Yeah, because there are some super soldiers out there that are being held captive in prisons for being very, very naughty as they were trying to change the system on the other side. I say other side as in the SSP, trying to bring about change, and they are being punished. We can certainly go down many different avenues. I wanted to give David a chance to chime in now. Welcome, David.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me, James. I really appreciate it.
I am very grateful and thankful that you were willing to take time out of your schedule today. So I know we've been talking about doing this for a couple months now, maybe even longer than that. I want to say thank you for doing this. And I know it's a big step for you because your main background is mostly working with healing and integration and not so much about the super soldier side of it all, because there's a lot of trauma there. And I guess from your perspective, you want to put that behind you. But I'm also grateful that you're willing to share your experience, because there's other people out there who may have had similar experiences to your own that this might be able to help.
Yeah, I think that as far as super soldier stuff goes, it's not like the main focus of my life to do disclosure. Like, I know that I'm here to help people heal and to bring back their memories and things like that. Yeah, even though I'm doing disclosure now, we'll see what happens.
I guess we could just start with maybe the beginning. When did you first realize that you were different than other people?
Well, I was always the black sheep in my family. And growing up, I would hang around with all different groups, but I never really had one group that I really hung around with. I didn't really have my awakening until I was 30, and now I'm 35. So I've just been moving forward since then. But if you like, I can give you a little bit of a background for a biography.
Go ahead.
It all started back in 1974. My father's DNA was taken and was used aboard a ship called the Kalandi. Kalandi was located 1 mile off the coast of Tijuana and San Diego in a cavern system. The DNA was altered and optimized for about 9 years. This is a program that's been happening for a long time. The Kalandi is a ship that was leased essentially by secret government in exchange for refuge on Earth for a certain species that's almost extinct. On the Kalandi, they do viral enhancements, genetic manipulation and things like that. And they do creation of these beings like myself. They manipulate the fetus to optimize it for function, whatever function that might be. I know another person, she was actually born on the Kalandi, but I was not born on the Kalandi. If you're born on a ship, then you have the vibrational frequency of the ship. And oftentimes, if you're taken as a fetus from there, then that will affect your adaptability on the planet, because you're not born with the vibration of the planet, you're born with the vibration of the ship. 1983, I was taken and put into my mother, and then I developed there for 9 months, and I was born in 1984. I found all that stuff out, and I was very, very surprised to hear that through past life regression and quantum healing hypnosis technique and stuff like that, and also through healing myself. So at the age of 4, I was taken and introduced into the shape-shifting program, which essentially was like in a parkade area. And there was psychologists, cognitive behaviorists, psychotherapists, and classical conditioning instructors. And their job was to break the conditioning that I'm a 3D vessel. You know, we can actually do whatever we want. You can fly, you can shapeshift, you can do whatever. That happened for 2 years until I was 6 years old. James, now I know that you have some involvement with shapeshifting as well. Do you remember what we were talking about before about this program, about the different children in the
Well,
program?
I was actually trying to pull it up. We've had multiple sessions. I'm trying to find it. Yeah, and David is an excellent channeler. He's communicated with some of my hybrid children. Just kind of curious to see that I have a ton of them. Communicated with like a parallel. I don't say parallel existence. Maybe another parallel life that's occurring on the same time. I'm basically, I suppose I'll go ahead and say it. Suppose, according to David, I have a parallel life that's a water dragon, and there's these giant caverns underneath within the planet Earth that are filled with water, where these beings can traverse using mental telepathy or mind sort of sonar. You actually had a drawing when you shapeshifted this creature, and if I'm not able to find it, then I will be sure to just share what I remember.
I think I have it handy actually, if you want. So I'll just talk about the program. There was several kids in the program, and some kids were better at shapeshifting. I wasn't great at it. I was okay, but some kids didn't make it into that program. They were diverted into another program because they weren't able to come up with forms that were functional. For example, there was one kid that turned into a turtle. They couldn't use him. There was a female that turned into an eagle, and that was used for surveillance. I myself was a blue wolf. There was another being that turned into a cat, but it wasn't quite a cat. It had this armor plating that went up its face, so it was actually quite terrifying.
And was it actually on all 4 legs or 2 legs?
It was 4 legs, yeah.
How
But
big was the cat?
probably like 900 pounds, just like 6 or 7 feet long, I imagine.
Can you explain how say a small, I'm assuming maybe 8-9-year-old child could shapeshift into something bigger than what it is? How does it get extra mass to do that?
I don't know all the minutia of the programming, but I do know a couple things. Our body is a holographic image, and in order to change that, you need to first free your mind of conditioning that makes you believe that you are in a set form. After that happens, you have to think of a template in your mind very clearly of what you'd like to become. This is like you creating a psychic construct. And once you create the construct, you can change your holographic image into this psychic construct. It doesn't really have to do with mass. It's just a density of energy. So that's how they change. Because I was only very small. I was only like 4 years old when I started.
So you go through this training scenario. They take these children. Do you have an idea what facility these children were taken to for training in these sessions?
No, I can just remember it being a parkade.
So did it look like an underground base?
For me, from my memory, I can just see like cement walls, cement ceiling, and then the pillars that run a big wide space.
These children, where did they stay? Were they embedded with a family? Did they go to a mess hall? Were there barracks?
I don't believe they just take them for like 2 years and then they send them back. It's kind of like a thing that's constantly happening, because I can recall being taken on a TLB6, which is like a precursor to a TR3B. And that's how I got to base. I can't quite remember what it was like at the base though.
Okay, well, it's still amazing that you remember this much. I'm sure they probably didn't want you to remember this.
So I had a code name, Dingo, and another name was Jackal. So I don't know how well you can see this, but.
And this guy is blue?
He's blue, yeah. So you can't see the feet there, but on the feet, the tail can disappear in combat. He's about 7 feet tall. He's denim blue, emerald blue, and cobalt blue. He has the ability to teleport, but it's actually called blinking, and it's a short teleport. It's like 10 to 12 feet. Enhanced psionics and telepathy, telekinesis, and other stuff. Regeneration, strength of 8 or 9 men, able to move a tank 3 or 4 feet from a charge. And he runs 128 kilometers per hour. Pretty fast. And I have memories of running next to a truck on a highway, on like an airway strip. They were trying to match my speed and see how fast I could go. And I have vivid memories of just jumping out of the back of an airplane with no parachute or anything and landing on my feet just from using telekinesis on the bottom of my feet. That was totally fine.
As far as like these scenarios are concerned, let's just maybe start a little about the training scenarios, because they would actually take these children. They had this limiting belief system that they're not able to do these abilities. So then they start off with some kind of videos. I think you said people levitating. They said, look, see, they can do it. You can do it too. Then what would be the next thing they would show them?
They would show them other people shapeshifting.
So I guess our handlers, because I'm assuming we have like a social worker that's handling us, we were instructed to pick main form. So yours, of course, was that blue creature that he had fur on his head but not on his body, because it's very difficult to visualize fur.
The important thing with shapeshifting is remembering your form very easily and having easy access to it. Now, for me, that form was chosen because in my last life, before this life, I was a lupine. I was a blue wolf. And I just had memory of being a blue wolf as a child.
Are these like sentient wolf beings from another world?
It's a sentient being. The Lupine are from Sirius B. They're part of the Canis Empire, and they're different from Canine, two different races, although they live in conjunction with each other. The Lupine are warrior species, whereas the Canines are kind of like traders, galactic traders, more than the Lupine. The Lupine have been at war with Draconians for a long time, thousands of years, eons, and that's kind of like their battle. So for them, whenever there's like vampires and werewolves in a movie and they're always battling each other, that's the werewolf is like the Lupine and the vampire is like the Draconian. It's like symbolism.
So are you saying you were a werewolf?
Not the right term, but yeah, pretty much. They look different a little bit.
Are they super aggressive and vicious?
No,
like
no.
in the movies?
No. Their technology is like tribal, but they also have space technology. So
Do they communicate with each other with barking sounds?
Not really. They have pretty strong telepathy, but their psionic abilities aren't super strong. But they're very social. They're very tribal.
Have they reached out to you in your current life to communicate with you?
So I pulled some information last night from being, because I was curious about the planet, and her name is Ayla. She's gray blue. She's 6 feet tall. The weight varies from like 150 to 200 pounds. So they're pretty thin. She honors respect, courage, honor, and integrity. I was just talking to her about DNA infusions a little bit.
Do they have a shorter lifespan than humans?
Not a lot of species live less than humans. Most of them live for a more optimized life because there's a lot of flaws in our genetic structure.
As far as this creature that you shapeshifted into, is that what they look like? Similar with the skin on their body?
Very similar. The difference is they have hair covering the full body. The teeth are much shorter. And the snout is a little bit shorter, and the ears aren't upright like a wolf. They're shorter. They're smaller than that. More elfish.
Anything else you want to share about the lupins?
Yeah. Okay, so when I was on the Kalandi, I was a lupine on the Kalandi, and this is before this physical body. And I was working on my own structure, my own genetic structure on the ship. I had to incorporate lupine DNA into, it wasn't a fetus, but into that vessel. And in order to make it easier for my soul to go from that body into this vessel. In order to do that, because I remember when I was working, we had to create this field around the vessel because there was all these other souls that wanted to incarnate into the body. So we had to protect it until I was ready to die. And then I died, and then...
Why did you decide to come to planet Earth? Were you not happy, or was there you wanted another mission?
Well, I remember actually not wanting to come back. I just kind of wanted to go back to my family and stuff like that. But the next memory I remembered after that was like sucking on my mom's breast. And that was kind of gross. But I could remember like my family, my sense of mission, what I had to do all began to fade away, and my connection all faded. And then I was in, as a baby.
And did you get visitations throughout your childhood?
Yeah, definitely. Lots. Nothing that I would want to mention right now, but perhaps another time.
All right. Well, so I guess let's go back to backtrack here to when you were at that base with the shape shifting. Of course, you mentioned one kid. They instructed us to pick one creature that we would a form that we would go back to. Some of these children would pick forms that were offensive and they were rewarded for it. And the ones that picked a defensive form, such as that turtle-like creature, were reprimanded and put into a different program. Do you have any idea what the turtle person put into, what program they put him into?
Most of the people in that program had more non-terrestrial DNA. that allowed them to change their vibration faster. So the shapeshift only takes about 2 seconds to fully complete. But yeah, those children were often put in other programs because they have other abilities as well, but they just might not be good at shapeshifting.
And so I was turned into this cat-like creature that was orange and I guess 7 to 9 foot tall.
And you had very, very, very wide shoulders.
Anything else you remember about the creature?
I can remember our nickname.
Yeah.
So they used to call us Hack and Slash because we were dropped from planes and helicopters or whatever craft. And then we would run through the jungle and then get rid of the target.
Didn't James Casbolt, Michael Prince mention a scenario like this?
Yes, he seen me actually. He's talking about me in the video, but there's some distortion in his recall towards the end. He says they were feeding off some sexual energy or negative energy of people dying, but that's not accurate. We were doing reconnaissance on his troop, and I did something similar to what he did at an older age.
You mean our group was spying on their group? We all worked together.
Well, there's many separate times that we were out on the field, right? So it's not all together in one mission.
But what I'm saying is that James Casbolt, he was probably in the same group that they were training these kids to do shapeshifting.
I think he must have been in some opposite group. He thought that it was some sort of natural alien, but I was a shapeshifter. So he thought that I was a species of Lupine.
Going back to this particular scenario, there was an actual being, I guess you could say an ET or interdimensional, that was on this planet that shouldn't have been here. And we were tasked to go into this jungle-like region to, I guess you said reconnaissance. It didn't end as reconnaissance, it ended as an extermination. So we were basically hunting this creature. You know what I'm talking about? Do you remember this?
I can't recall it.
Was this in a regression? That maybe?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah, you said this, we were tasked with hunting this creature in the jungle. I don't know if it was you or it was me, but one of us said, grab his torso and the other one will grab his head. We were maybe like 100 foot away and we just ran right up to it and snapped it in half.
I do remember that.
Were they like not supposed to be here on the planet?
I can't quite recall.
Yeah. It's not like they're going to tell us. So at that point, we went to the rendezvous point and we reverted back to our human form. And we were about the age of 14 at that time. And a helicopter picked us up. I guess it was one of these silent levitating helicopters or had that capacity. It looked like a helicopter, but it certainly had some kind of exotic technology in there. On board the craft, we were trying to use, I guess, remote viewing or some sort of regression hypnosis on you to go back in time to communicate to us while we were on the craft. Do you remember that?
This is all part of the hypnosis. I don't remember.
You reached out to me in your spirit form to say, hi, I'm from the future and we want to know if you have any messages for us. My younger self, my 14-year-old self, that both of us, I guess, were being treated well. They would give us as much food as we wanted, whatever we wanted to eat. He said he wished he was an adult because he wanted to go out and drink booze and party and have sex. And I think you were on sort of like in that same mindset. It was kind of like really hard to have a conversation. I guess you can imagine what a 14-year-old, he thinks it's all fun. I guess they really had us totally brainwashed to the point where we just do whatever they wanted us to do. I think it was me or it was you. When we first reached out to communicate, you said to be quiet. You kind of like hold up your hand like that. And because we were being monitored and because there was the 2 helicopter pilots were transporting us somewhere, so they didn't want them eavesdropping our conversation. Do you recall anything else?
I can just remember flashes of being picked up in the helicopter with you and sitting in the back and ripping that guy apart.
So they would have congratulated us and they were super excited that we did this. And I guess we went back to the base and got some rewards, whatever that might have been. Do you think this is like one of these 20 years and back, or do you think we were gone for less time than that?
I don't think these missions take very long. They just, we got dropped off. We just nodded to each other. We just knew what we were going to do. And then boom. Attack the target, and we got retrieved, and then we're taken out. I don't think it's 20 and back, to be honest.
Well, what I meant to say is from the time they were training us in this base to shapeshift, when they would send us out on missions, the time they had us, that were we like being inserted back into our civilian life over and back and forth and going into some kind of altar, or were we like in cloned bodies, dual existence at the same time while we were living out our civilian life?
I'm not quite sure. I don't know those details yet.
Somebody wanted to know, were you blue or were you given off a blue color?
The hair is blue. The natural color for the lupine race is like a bluish gray color, but some species are more gray and some are more blue.
Okay, somebody want to know, do you have any information on Bigfoot? Were there any Sasquatch beings in our group?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Do you have any information on Sasquatch?
I have only heard things on Sasquatch. I've heard that, I can't remember the race of the reptilian, whether it was Saurians or another group, but a long time ago, this planet was a hunter planet, like on Predator, essentially. And there was lots of species that were taken and put here in place for game. And some were more sentient than others. Some were dinosaurs, some were not. Just like the Karak, which looks like the non-terrestrial being from Aliens. Bigfoot is one of those species that was put on the planet. They have been able to survive on the planet. They have the ability to dimensionally shift from third to fourth, and that's why they go invisible on people, and they can shift back from fourth to third, which makes them visible again. But it's just a non-terrestrial species, and there's not many of them left on the planet, as far as I know.
The only thing I could add to that is I was doing a hypnotic regression one time. One of the Sasquatch people showed up in hyperspace. We tried to follow the Sasquatch creature through hyperspace to its destination, and it didn't seem very interested in communicating with us. And then we finally reached out to it and tried to grab its arm and said, "Could you please just say hello? We just wanted to sit talking." They did not like humans at all. So we really have a bad reputation on this planet. But you know what? Maybe in the future that can change. 3 more good questions about the lupins. Can you comment if they kept any pets like humans? We like to have little dogs and cats and maybe some other type of pet.
I actually don't know the answer to that. Like I was speaking to one last night, but I didn't ask those nitty gritty kind of questions. But I do know that they're really close to the canine race. And even though they're different, they have different culture, they have different lifestyles. They do treat them as like pretty similar on level.
So they would have an alpha in their little pack.
Yeah. But the
The
pack
alpha.
are large.
The alpha usually gets treated a little bit better as long as they're alpha anyway.
Yeah, the packs are like 30 to 40 individuals, something like that.
And what do they eat?
They're omnivorous.
So they eat meat?
Sure.
Because I know like there are some people that have communications will say like, I don't know, maybe Andromedans or Palladians, and they're promoting vegetarianism as the wave of the future. So you're saying that there are some sentient beings out there that never went fully vegetarian?
No, of course not. If you have any reptilian DNA, then you cannot go without meat. Reptilians specifically need protein, meat protein, to regenerate tissues and things like that. So not everyone can go vegetarian like the dream, but people with non-reptilian DNA can.
Yeah, I think that kind of really stinks, especially if you want to supposedly save the planet. I think, maybe in the future we'll have this food replication technology, or maybe there'll be some kind of meat they could grow in a lab. But all right, well, let's move on here. Oh wait, somebody want to know, have you heard of the Allies of Humanity briefings?
No.
Okay, so let's move on. Could you just comment a little bit about the Kalandi? What do they look like?
That's the name of the ship.
And what are the beings? What do they look like on that ship?
Okay. So there's a large variety of species that are on the Kalandi ship. There's a yellow race. I don't know all their names actually, nor how they look fully. I have images of different species on the ship, and one of them is Lyran. There's a Lyran race. There's different species that are on the craft. Humans are allowed at very limited capacity. They have to have more non-terrestrial DNA to be able to be comfortable enough to be on the ship, because the difference in the vibrational frequency of the ship compared to the planet is significant. So if you don't have non-terrestrial DNA, then your vibration can't oscillate high enough or low enough to be able to be comfortable on the ship.
Can you comment if the children run away and get terrified when Earth terrestrials are on board?
From my understanding, that there's no children on the ship. They are in tubes. They're like fetus mode, but there are some children, but they send them off rather quickly, like before 1 year old, I do believe.
So they don't keep them in a traditional family unit?
No. And the children, most of them die before the age of 14.
Why?
It's just part of the genetic issues. Like they're getting better at it, but still it's not a refined process.
So if you make it over 14, you're in good shape?
Yeah, I call her my sister, but she was born on the craft, whereas I was born off the craft. She was an orphan. She has some issues with vibrational compatibility, I'll say, with the planet. So she's really sensitive to certain things that come in energetically, whereas I don't really have that issue because I was born in my mother's fetus. So I was born with the vibration of the planet, which makes a big difference.
Someone wanted to know, do they have beings that can, I guess, eat prana energy, not have to eat food?
Yes, that does exist.
Is that something that humans can do?
Yeah, it is possible.
So
But
we don't have to eat meat.
it has to do with how high your consciousness is, how advanced you are, and also genetics as well. If you are just a regular Joe working your 9 to 5 job and you're perfectly happy working that one job your whole life, and then you try to do that, firstly, you're going to be a parasite, which is terrible. So you'll accumulate karma by being an energy vampire. I mean, you can live off of magic, which is like higher dimensional energy brought down to this dimension, and that will make you feel full. But yeah, just solely living off of prana, it is possible.
And you'll be taking the prana from other people. It's not just the sun.
Right. So it's not ethical, that's for sure.
So there are such things as psychic vampires.
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
And people consciously do it.
Are there any hybrids on the Kalandi vessel?
Yeah, most people that are allowed on there have to be hybrids to be able to even visit.
And do the beings on board get along? Like, here on Earth, a lot of humans, different races, or sometimes we look at each other and our differences. But if you're ET and a bunch of different groups of ET, you think there'll be even more differences.
Well, the thing is, they have better ethics than we do. They're much more moral as well. Yeah, they have their differences. They have different cultures. They have different molecular properties to their bodies and requirements for vibrations and gravity and things like that. But yet they are still able to work better together than humans can. It's kind of sad.
And how big is the Kalandi vessel?
I don't know its exact measurements, but it's quite large, perhaps 3 miles long.
Have you been on it numerous times throughout your life? Was that the only time?
I've been on it a couple times. I had to go on it in my past. It was a reward for working with Kruger. I did a 20 and back for Kruger, and they did a viral enhancement on me because I refused augmentation.
How about we discuss a little bit about that? Because you said that or maybe I think it might have been Penny Bradley. She said that cyborgs are treated poorly in the SSP, almost like a lower citizen as compared to those who had the viral enhancements. So that's why you wanted to be virally enhanced.
Actually, cyborgs don't have any rights. They're not considered human, so they don't have rights. So there's two things. You can be organically enhanced or you can be augmented. Augmented means you're taking material that is not naturally occurring in the body and introducing it into the body and integrating it with the system. So that's like nano, femto, tech, all this crap. And then you have enhancement, which is chemical synthesis. This is optimization of the DNA. It's introducing viruses. I don't know this actual process of it, but it introduces a virus which optimizes the functionality of the DNA, and it can introduce optimization DNA sequencing.
In a remote viewing session, I wouldn't say that I did, but I participated in it. I wasn't the one remote viewing. We found a cloning lab, and we learned that they would inject these clones with a virus. It would not only activate its abilities, but memories as well. They can insert memories through a virus. Could you confirm that that's actually the case?
I can't personally confirm it.
So as far as like vaccines here on planet Earth, do you think they're doing stuff like this? Modifying these vaccines in ways that are...
This is a big subject. I don't think it's to the same capacity or level because human understanding of the genetics by itself is not to the power of non-terrestrial understanding, because changes have to be made energetically before they're made physically. And this is one of the reasons why Monsanto corn is like shifting back to its natural form after like a few generations, making the DNA unstable, because the change has to happen energetically before it happens physically.
Oprah Winfrey is now on the board of directors, well, she was on Monsanto, but she also has been tasked from Merck Pharmaceuticals to promote vaccines. And Merck was mentioned by the Heather material as being responsible for working on super soldiers and some of their omega-3. They take dead super soldiers that were defunct, threw them in a vat, and extracted their omega-3. So certainly a lot of these mainstream companies are involved in these projects in ways that they are not letting us know. Okay, so let's move on here to next question is about Kruger. What can you tell us about Kruger? What do you remember?
So I have several memories, and some of them are from parallel reality, some of them aren't. So, and I haven't yet distinguished which ones are which. We can talk about zombies if you want, or we can continue.
Do you recall like a case manager, a caseworker, or how many years you were there?
I did a 20 and back for Kruger in exchange for my viral enhancements.
Do you remember the first day when you got there? Like what they told you?
No, but I can remember fighting zombies, and I remember training against zombies. They're always runners, by the way. They're not the slow zombies. A lot of people would just off themselves in that situation. This is actually kind of interesting because I have some information on something that will connect from the zombies into this reality. I don't think this has ever been talked about before. There's something called the metagene. The metagene is something that is present in particular individual cells. I talked to you about this before when we were talking about Jean Grey in the laboratory. But anyway, what they do is they take DNA from a sensitive individual and then they bombard it with different vibrational frequencies. So all of the spectrum of vibrational frequencies. Now what happens is when the DNA reacts stronger than a normal person's DNA, that means they have a strong metagene. Now, the metagene, I don't know a lot about it, but I do know some. The stronger the metagene, the stronger someone's abilities are, the stronger their transformations and things like that go. If you bring the metagene into like a zombie reality and someone with a strong metagene is infected by the whatever virus, what happens is their transformation, they don't become just a regular zombie. They become like an abomination or like the bad guy in Resident Evil. They become enhanced. Zombies can have traits. It's rare for a zombie to have like intelligence, but they can have certain types of intelligence, like the ability to move a lever up, for example. So that kind of intelligence, but it's not common. Most of them just run and are just like regular humans running full throttle, like as if they had an adrenaline rush.
I guess my question would be is assuming, like humans, they would need to eat and sleep to sustain themselves. Once you convert into a zombie, is there a set time that the person stays a zombie before they drop dead?
Well, I'm not going to just say no blanket statement, but from my experience, from my recall, when someone's bitten, it doesn't take very long to change. It's quite quick, like 15 seconds or to a minute or something like that. When they're bit, their consciousness just floats backwards and then all they see is red and it's just pure rage and anger. They just attack the closest thing to them. That's not another zombie. Sometimes zombies even attack other zombies.
Well, so how long do they stay a zombie before the body just falls over?
When you're alive, you have a refreshing amount of like adrenaline, endorphins, and all these chemicals that are produced by the body. When you're transformed into a zombie of different types, even though they have different capacities and limits, you use up the adrenaline. You use up the endorphins, you use up all this stuff, and the body's not producing fresh enzymes and stuff like that. They do run out of steam, and then they start walking slowly. And then when the body builds up in lactic acid, then they start to really slow down because they can't break that down.
So like a lot of what's seen in the movies is totally inaccurate, where you see zombies running around for 9-10 months with a little skeleton, bones popping out. And
Yeah.
do you recall any interactions with Umbrella Corporation?
Yes, but my memory on that's not great.
Can you tell us what you remember? Anything at all? Or is it just like nothing practically? Where
I know that I have memories of Umbrella, but I haven't really put much energy into thinking about the recall. I can't really share too much on it, but I can just talk about spending time at an outpost with only a few survivors. There was like 20 survivors. What had happened was I was on watch, and I remember being pissed off because there was an abomination, a zombie that came up, and it had intelligence factor. I was just so pissed off because I had to deal with it by myself. And normally, like, we had this fence and we all had spears, but we just got attacked. There were several people that were infected in the base that people were dealing with. One thing I do recall was it was like a baby zombie, but it wasn't. It was an abomination technically, but it was very, very small. It had wicked intelligence factor, like a hive mind kind of thing. I remember we were torturing it to get information on like the location of large groups of mobs.
they can actually talk?
This thing could talk telepathically. If someone is very psychic or very sensitive to energy, I'll say, and they're turned into a zombie, they're just saying transmutation, but they can shift into one of these abominations, which takes different forms. Now, most of the people that were survivors had psychic abilities. So people were activated at one time to survive this wave, and I don't know exactly to what level. The people that had stronger abilities often lived for longer.
So when you communicated with this abomination, this telepathic being in a hive mind, What was its perception or his mentality? Was it extremely rageful and angry?
It was different than the rest of them because my telepathy is really cranked up during this memory and the telekinesis and everything else. I can recall it being actually quite calm compared to the rest. Like it didn't have anger as its overall. It was more concerned with collective. So it was rather calm.
And so was this like a parallel Earth, or is this a virtual reality training scenario?
I have
Something
had
different?
training scenarios, but this was, I don't actually know if it was a parallel reality or not.
Do you recall if you were speaking fluent German?
No, I wasn't. I was speaking English.
Because Kruger, of course, is a German military contractor. Can you tell us anything else about Kruger?
I haven't done much work into digging into Kruger itself. Just primarily trying to figure out my zombie memories and other things like that.
What about vampires? Were there vampires in this scenario as well?
So the time that I experienced vampires was in a training simulation. So I remember being in this cell, which was like 20 feet by 20 feet, just white walls everywhere. I'm pretty sure it was a virtual reality. I was in the room. I had no awareness of what a zombie was or what it could do. And then there was a zombie in the other corner of the room, which ran at me. And at first I was like, whoa, 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 what's going on? And then it attacked me and I must have got reset because they did it again. I defeated the zombie. Then it like zipped to the next level, which was 2 zombies. And then it kept happening. And then my abilities activated. Went 3 zombies and then 4 zombies. And then it went into no zombies. And then it had 1 vampire. So it was like 1 vampire and 1 zombie, 1 vampire, and then 2 zombies, 1 vampire, then 3, until it was up to like a master vampire. Like 3 vampires is equivalent to a master vampire. It got up to 3 master vampires, and then that was the end of the memory.
Were there other kids with you as well that were being trained?
Not in that simulation room.
Somebody want to know, did you have a favorite weapon?
I just used telekinesis primarily.
They didn't give you guns or anything like that?
We had guns, but telekinesis was more effective for me.
Do zombies have a leader?
Closest to leader that I can think of would be that hive mind kind of thing. They're scattered amongst infected beings, ones that have greater collective mind, and they're able to somehow have a group soul consciousness or something like that to connect to the other individuals around it. But I don't know exactly how it works.
When they spot a target of fresh meat, I'm assuming you make a little bit of noise and one of them spots you. The next thing you know, the whole collective starts coming towards you.
That only happens if there's, I don't have a word for them, but one of those hive mind individuals. If they're near, then that will happen. But if they're not, then they just act as individuals.
The next question, how about Leaksoldaten? Do you have any information about that?
So I worked with them. I still do. The Licksoldat is a group of individuals that were super soldiers, and then they decided in the program that they have more non-terrestrial DNA. So in order to get into this program, you have to have a certain percentage of non-terrestrial DNA. I don't know what it is, if it's 20% or 25 or 30%. I was working in that program with Semyasi and Simone and several other individuals. It's a very small group. It's just like 4 of us working on a small scout ship. And our job is to maintain and regulate individuals that are living on the planet that are being taken care of. So there's many species in our galaxy that are in trouble and they don't have any place to go for safety. So sometimes Earth takes them on in exchange for technology, in exchange for services like the Kalandi craft. What we do is we maintain the homeostasis of their biome, which is located in a cloaked location holographically on the planet. And we make sure that the plants aren't going to affect our local flora and fauna. We make sure that the individuals are maintained vibrationally, their environments are regulated.
And so Leaksoldaten, is that part of Kruger?
No.
What organization do they work for?
I don't want to say they're independent, but they are separate from a lot of political boundaries that a lot of these other groups have to follow. They have their own parameters that they're allowed to go by because they're non-terrestrials. So they have to meet the criterion of the Galactic Council in addition to the human government regulations, which limits like direct contact and things like that from happening.
So Leaksoldaten translates into light warrior, if I'm not mistaken. I thought it was a division that was served under, I don't know if I should even say the word here. I'll probably get demonetized. I'm already demonetized. Oh well. Adolf Hitler in another parallel universe. We're trying to do disclosure here. Do you have any comments about that?
I don't know a lot about the politics of the whole thing, but I do have some memories of working with them.
What about your uniform? Did you see, the swastikas and all that stuff?
My uniform was one piece blue suit. Sometimes it was a green one piece suit. It has it has memory. For example, if you tried to take the suit off, it would not work. But if I follow my finger down, it would unzip like in that pattern that I just did. So if I want to take it off, I could just run my finger down all the way and then pull it off, no problem. But somebody else, it's not possible for them to penetrate it.
Anything else you want to mention about Leaksodaden? How many years were you working for them?
I'm still working for them now.
So what does that mean? They take you when you sleep at night?
Sometimes it changes and varies. I usually get a heads up before I go.
Do they allow you to pack your bag and bring some clothes and food?
No, it's not like that.
So what happens that when they take you, you get taken like one of those tier-shaped craft and brought to a base, or you teleport out of your home, or what? A van shows up?
They do something called translocation, is like teleportation essentially, which will take you from wherever you are. They have your biometric signature. They can teleport you from wherever you are to wherever they want you to be.
And do you recall where you're usually taken?
Directly onto the ship.
What does the inside of the ship look like?
It's pretty empty. A lot of it is like there's a main screen, there's several chairs, there's 4 chairs set up. There's a chamber for like decontamination and for changing your vibration to match the vibration of the ship. That's just a small containment unit. A lab for plants, for studying flora and fauna, primarily flora. That's where Simone and Simiase, primarily Simone, she works the plants and things like that, just to see if they're compatible with the biome.
But Simone and Simiase, they're one of these, what is it, the 13D, 12D? Oh, I forget which one it is. One of those Pleiadians. They got a really bad reputation.
So they're Plajaran. You can say they're Pleiadian. They're not from here, and they have different customs than a regular airy-fairy Pleiadian, I would say. They're like Pleiadians genetically, but they have different cultures and values.
And did you notice any weird or nefarious behavior, especially from Simiase, who has a really bad reputation?
I understand why she has a bad reputation. She has a bad temper. She does things very extremely. I can understand why. Simone kind of tempers her. I've worked with her before. She is a relative to me, she's a genetic relative. So we have a connection that someone else might not have. So I might see a side of her that other people don't see. But I know that she's very strong-willed. She loves respect and power. That's kind of part of her personality. She's like one of the leaders.
This is a drawing done by obviously an earth artist. Supposedly this is a channeled, this is what she looks like, Simone anyway. Could you confirm?
Yeah, her boobs are a bit bigger.
I was hoping you could talk a little bit about the Area 51 bunker, in particular with your experience with Peter the Insider.
Okay, so when I was older, I worked at Area 51. So at 13 and a half to 16 years old, I worked at Area 51. As a child, I used to have nosebleeds virtually every single day. Whenever I'd get a nosebleed, I would get taken out of class by the teacher because I didn't know how to deal with it. That's when I would go on aboard the craft, TLB-6.
And they look like a boomerang?
Oh, well, kind of like a boomerang, but if you filled in the back, it's kind of like a black triangle.
So what happened then?
My first year, actually, I did the same job. I was working as an observer for a Stargate portal. And my job was to read the energies of the beings before they came through the portal and to make sure that there was no invisible or nefarious beings or malevolent beings that were going to cross over through the portal. I would leave class. This probably happened like 4 days a week or maybe 5, and then I would get picked up, and then we'd be taken to a mountainside. It was always the same mountain, which has a holographic projection over an entrance. A ship was landed in the bay, and then we'd be escorted down like an escalator system, but it's not an escalator. It's difficult. It's like a platform that moves down. Then I would get dressed and then start my shift, and I remember as soon as I arrived for shift, there was always a big lineup. The chamber was about 20 feet wide, 100 feet long, and like 50 feet high, perhaps. There was a Stargate, kind of like Stargate SG-1, like the portal. Then there were security guards who were on a higher up platform so they could shoot down at the Stargate if they needed. There was a rail. There was also a process that the individuals had to go through in order to harmonize their vibrations with the vibrations of the base and the planet, because some of them didn't come from Earth. So what happened was I had a room on the left, and I would go into my computer room. On the computer room, it was a quantum computer that allowed me to see on the other side of the Stargate. By using that computer, I was able to scan the vibrational frequencies of the individuals on the other side. Then I could tell if they were good or bad, or if they were carrying a disease or something that wasn't healthy for us, or a virus or anything like that. So that was my job. If anything came through that was malevolent, then I had the ability to deal with it.
So you were in the mess hall at Area 51 and you saw Peter the Insider there. You approached him, and what was your conversation?
Just before we get started there, the arrows on the floor were red, yellow, green, blue, and black. And anyone that works at Area 51 will know the colors on the floor, because if you work in a certain department, then you only follow one arrow. So I worked in the green, which was communication. So I just stuck to the green arrows. In the cafeteria, there are arrows that, like, everyone meets in the mess hall for lunch. So all the lines intersect at the line to get your food. That's where I met Peter. And I was only young when I met him. I remember being very, very, very powerful, totally unlocked, you know what I mean? And he seen me, he was older, like perhaps 30 years old. I said, hi. And we had a QHHT session doing some recall on this. So my memory's a little bit spotty, but I don't quite remember everything.
Yeah, certainly a lot of other whistleblowers that have been to Area 51 describe these lines on the ground, and you're not allowed to go over if you're not part of that group. Otherwise, I guess you get reprimanded. Could you comment about maybe how long you were there and at what age you were?
I did that from 13 and a half to 16 years old before I moved on to another program.
And what was your main purpose of being in Area 51?
So I had T13 clearance. My job was to usher non-terrestrials and terrestrials through the Stargate and to protect the base if anything malevolent came through.
You've had all these amazing experiences. You said you were 35?
I'm 35 now.
How old are you actually really in linear time?
I was born in 1984.
But with all the overlapping timelines, do you have any idea?
Well, I was hoping to have a congruent timeline, like a linear pathway, so we wouldn't deviate so much, James. But Kruger kind of messed that up a little bit. But I have a lot of memories. I've had a lot of recall, and I know a lot of my past lives.
All right. Anything else you want to mention about Area 51? Maybe, did you ever go up on the surface, or were you always underground?
I was just on the surface inside the mountain.
And were there other kids there with you?
For sure. The shuttle was always full. We always had 4 passengers that were picked up and then dropped off.
Do you think they're still actively taking children down there and doing these? Yeah.
100%.
How big do you think that base is?
It's really huge. I have no idea how many layers there is, but it's like the hive from Resident Evil.
The actual hive is located underneath Toronto, by the way. As far as, have you ever tried to remote view Area 51 or?
No, I know that there's fail safes. There's a protectorate that prevents people from viewing. And if you do try to view it, you'll be flagged. And then you'll have a tracker put on you.
Sometimes they can do like magnetic bubbling over your aura, and they'll keep a piece of your soul down there. So they'll always be able to have a piece of you they can control, manipulate, target. It's not a good idea to do it. Now, there is ways of doing it, but we're not going to go into that right now, because inevitably someone's going to be listening to this and probably going to do it wrong.
Yeah, I definitely don't recommend that.
Did you enjoy your time there, working there?
Yeah. I wish I got paid for it. That'd be awesome. But I don't have any money for doing those jobs in 3D, unfortunately. So.
Did they promise you any money?
While you're in these programs, you receive pay. You think that you're getting full pay, you're making great money, and when you're done, you get to take that money with you, but they wipe you, and then you forget that it ever happened, so you don't get the pay, and they keep it.
And we were actually just talking about this a few days ago in a private conversation. I don't know if you want to mention the name of these 2 individuals who were tracking you. They are under the impression that everything's going to work out to their advantage. They're getting paid and doing a good job monitoring you, but in the end of the day, they're actually just a total tool. They certainly probably take all their money, whatever the compensation they're promised, and not give it to them.
I'll keep their names private because they're my personal monitors. I don't want anything bad to happen to them, potentially.
Have you ever done anything in Antarctica?
Not to my knowledge.
What else did you want to go into?
I did something very similar to James Caspold. Is it James Caspold?
Well, he changed it to Michael Prince, but you can call him either.
When I was 16, transitioning into 17, I started doing something very similar to what he was doing. That's when I left Area 51 and I started working on these individual contracts with Earth Defense Force. I remember going in the base, and it was like looking at, when you see NASA on television, there's all these computers and there's a main display screen. It was kind of like that. It was a control room. And my job was telemetry. I was responsible for using this computer to track a ship that was targeted and to track it down and find the location of where it's going to land. That was my first year. My second year doing that, when I was 17 or 18, I was part of a ground crew of 4 people. Sometimes it was 5, but it was usually 4. I was standing in the back of the group usually. So we have 2 enforcers in each group, and they're fully amped up, augmented, or enhanced in some way. They have full capabilities. They are the extract team. And then I was doing telemetry in the back, and then there was someone else. Instead of all that technology that they had in that base, I had this little cube. So the cube could do everything that the base could do, including emit a frequency that would disrupt the craft. So the frequency of the box changes and oscillates at extreme speeds. Oftentimes with these craft, they sync up to a gravitational wavelength, or they sync up to some sort of field. And what happens is when we match the frequency of the box to the frequency of the craft and then change it out and then go back in, it throws off the calibration of the ship. Sometimes that can desync the ship, which causes it to crash. That was my second year. And my third year, I was part of the extraction team.
So what, you extract beans that have been on crashed UFOs or something like that?
Yeah, my third year, I was responsible for retrieving individuals from the craft. So I would use telekinesis to open up the hull of the ship, and then we would extract the beings if they were hostile. And then they unfortunately had lots of crappy things happen to them. So they were held hostage, or for minerals, resources, or just information or whatever.
Were you aware of how they were treating these beings?
Not really, just through hearsay.
How old were you when all this was going on?
From 16-ish to 19.
And were there other kids about that same age also doing these missions?
Yeah. The ages varied, but the enforcers were always older than the younger kids. It's like they would get us transitioned into a further and further in our developments. As we grew and developed, they'd get us to become more responsible.
Can you comment about what kind of beings that you saw in these vessels?
A lot of them are grays that were taken down, but there were some other individuals. I remember regretting taking some individuals down because there's some really wonderful, loving species, and they were just in the wrong space at the wrong time.
Do you have any information on why they're visiting Earth? Because, I mean, this planet's under quarantine.
There's a lot of space pirates, and they don't really follow galactic protocol. When they enter our atmosphere, then Earth Defense Force is activated or notified, whatever technology they use, then we're deployed. They're not allowed to be just walking around the planet because it's against protocol.
And so I'm assuming a lot of these beings were definitely probably not supposed to be here anyway, but as far as your interactions with them, did they communicate with you? At least the ones that were still alive.
Some of them, yes. And that's why, like, it's a little bit emotional to talk about, because some individuals definitely didn't deserve what happened to them. Others definitely did. Like, there were several of them that would attack us psionically when we'd go to extract them from the craft, primarily the grays. But there were others. We would really have to be on our toes when we did an extraction.
Did you try to be, what do they call it, their comfort blanket, try to calm them down? Or your goal was just to go in there and get them out as soon as possible?
Pretty much just get them out. But telepathy is really effective for calming people down and for helping them to understand their situation. So that did happen.
Can you describe what these vessels look like inside?
Usually they're like this very shiny metallic color. And I think that has to do with the metal that this craft is made out of. It must be some mineral, some resource that is just in our galaxy, just all over the place. And it's like a universal, no resistance substance. I don't believe that it heats up at all, no matter how hot it gets. It's like a foil. So it's not difficult to open them up because they're not designed for like impacts and things like that. They're often on scout ships when they come to the planet.
Now, some people say that these vessels are created using mind telekinesis, like they manifested out of thin air, or maybe they're made from one, or some of them are conscious. They're actually a live organism.
So the Arcturian race, I had this conversation some time ago with an Arcturian. They were telling me about their people, and they said one of the roles of their race was at one time to create this consciousness within the craft so that others can use it. But they also have the ability to physically create something from nothing, apparently, to bring it from the Akashic records or the halls of Amenti or something, and they bring it into this reality. And when they do that, then it manifests physically.
And did you work with craft that were conscious?
Yeah, many times. I can remember connecting with the craft telepathically, but I have to be careful because I'm not authorized in that telepathic wavelength. So it would cause me to lose my abilities temporarily. Like it would send a feedback.
It will try to resist you because it knew what you were about to do.
Right.
Did you see any reptilian type creatures on any of these vessels?
Yeah, they weren't really common. Some reptilian gray species.
Are they known as grails, the gray reptilian hybrids?
I'm not really sure. But the actual full reptilian species were less common. I remember because like some of them are naturalized to the planet, like the Saurian race, and the Draconians already have authorization to come through, unfortunately. But everyone is different. Like Anunnaki are reptilians technically, then the Thuban race, which is the Alpha Draconians, and then the Saurians, and there's Zespods, and there's other reptilian races too.
Could you describe any kind of maybe technology you saw aboard the vessels?
I don't know the names of the technologies. I don't really focus on like the physics aspect of it, but I can tell they had very advanced technology. And this simple device that we had was able to take them down just because of their mechanism for locking into a signal and then riding that.
Did you see any, like, I don't know, vats on board where they were abducting humans and holding them captive?
Sometimes they would have different flora and fauna for scientific reasons. That was usually just discarded after because it was from Earth, but just minor stuff for the most part. I didn't see any other humans on the craft or anything like that.
Kind of reminds me of the movie Flight of the Navigator. I don't know if you remember that one. How many missions do you recall, craft that you did these extractions on?
Like, how many do I have actual memory of?
Yeah, I guess so. That probably works too.
4 or 5.
You suspect you probably were sent in a lot more than just 4 or 5.
Oh, yeah. I was with them for several years.
Do you have any information on whether or not I might have been a participant in that program?
Perhaps after we can find out.
Yeah, I do feel like I was involved in extractions. I don't have any memories of it, though. Do you have any information on where they actually take the crashed vessels?
No, I haven't thought of that. I have to put some time in and focus on that to bring the information forward.
So what is generally the protocol? What, somebody calls in or what, they already know the vessel is crashed, they're tracking everything?
It's an optimized automated system. So as soon as they don't know exactly how it goes, but when they pass through the atmosphere on some depth, then it activates the defense program, and which automatically sends information of everything on the craft that they can pick up, like what races are associated with each individual craft, and then it triggers the team to be deployed.
How long does it take the team to actually reach the location?
It depends how fast they get to them before they leave the atmosphere. They have to reach a certain level before they can actually lock on to their signature, and depends on the craft as well. So I don't really know.
So it's possible civilians could show up at the site and view the wreckage.
That's possible because it's totally random where they come into the atmosphere.
And that's where they probably have the men in black show up afterward to neuralize everyone.
I can't remember seeing them.
You do have the men in black experience. You want to share that?
I was sitting on my couch when I was younger. I had the television on and the door opened up behind me. I glanced back really quick to see who it was, and it was an old friend that I recognized at the time. And so I turned back to turn off the television, and I looked back while I was standing up, because this all happens really quickly. So I have to slow it down so you guys can understand better. So I get up to greet my friend at the door, and at that same time I don't see my friend anymore, but I can see this individual. He's like 6 feet tall. He has little tiny eyes. They're like very wide set on his face. He has no nose and he has a slit for a mouth, and I see this big flash. At the same time, I put my hand up like this to cover my eyes and my third eye, and he said, "I need to flash this between your eyes," like super monotone. And I said, whoa, 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 you can't do that. What are you doing? And he just repeated the same thing. He said, "I have to flash this between your eyes." And I said, "I can't right now. My dog is outside." So I started walking out my door to call my dog in. He was just like tracking me essentially. And I called my dog to get in the house, and the dog wasn't really coming. I turned around and he flashed me and he got me. But it took some time, but I found out what happened after I got flashed. And that was kind of the cool part for me. So after I got flashed, this individual who sounds stupid, like sounds like a stupid monotone person, but they're definitely not.
Describe what their facial features look like.
Okay, they have no nose. They have like a peachy white skin. They have no lips, so the mouth just looks like a slit. They have a relatively thin structure, and their eyes are very small, much smaller than human eyes, and they're very wide set, like on the sides of the head. not the sides, but like they're facing the front, but they're very far apart. They don't have any hair either. But anyway, they can shapeshift and they're super telepathic. Before they enter the space, they're reading your energy. They're gleaning your memories to see who can I shapeshift into before I enter. And also what they do is I don't know exactly how they do it, but what they do is they numb you. It feels like you're almost drugged or drunk before. So you might slur your words when you're talking to them. This hasn't happened during this memory, but it has happened before. So they'll get you to like slur your words and then they can do it really quickly. But I don't know if all species can do that. What happened after he flashed me was he went outside because I was just standing like upright like a zombie, essentially. Not like one of my zombies, but a regular zombie, I guess. Super compliant, super docile, not resisting anything, and he called my dog in. So he must have sent a telepathic nudge to my dog to tell it to run into the house. After he did that, after the dog was in the house, he grabbed my hand just gently and he walked me like a baby, because when I was neuralized, I was taking these little tiny baby steps. And it was kind of funny after I seen the recall of me having this experience. And he ushered me into the ship, which was in my driveway. It was completely invisible, except for I could see the hatch that moved upwards above the top of the craft. And I could see the passenger seat, and then I could see the toes of 3 other individuals that were already sitting in the back. He just gently walked me to the back seat. I sat down, and then they shut the door and we took off. And we went to the mountainside through the hologram, and then we're taken down into a chamber. I remember we were taken out one at a time. The person who was neuralized first was the first one off the ship. The chamber did something with our consciousness because it blacked me out again. And I can't seem to recall what happened after that. I haven't done that yet.
When you went through the hologram, did it actually momentarily disappear and allow you to go in, or did you just phase through it?
We just phased right through it.
So is it possible that people could stumble upon one of these holograms out there where there could be a base and walk through it?
Sure, yeah, that's definitely possible. I think that they might make it look like it's impossible to access with the hologram so that no one would even attempt to even get close to it.
Can you comment about your dog? Wasn't your dog neuralized too?
I don't think so. He just like told the dog to enter the house. So maybe neuralize it. I don't know, but I didn't see any other flash.
You said you're a telepath. Can you communicate with your dog?
Sometimes. I can get his intention. I always know what he wants. He doesn't have to bark or whatever. I can always tell. But I've only had a conversation, which was very basic with him a couple times in my life.
So they don't really have like humans would have like this, you could have like this higher sophistication level of intelligence, but with the animals, it's a lot more dumbed down a little bit, our perspective.
Humans are always thinking about what they're going to do like in the future, and they're daydreaming and they're doing all this stuff. Or maybe they're thinking about the past. But with animals, from my experience, they're always in the now. They're just in the moment right now, perfectly grounded. So that's kind of a cool experience to have, to be able to do that.
We've had numerous people asking if you have an Rh negative blood, and this almost comes up in every video. So do you have okay. You certainly don't need to have Rh negative blood to be involved in this.
I'm all positive.
And by the way, there is another Rh factor. It's like Rh, it's not negative, but it's like no Rh or something like, I can't remember. Peter, the insider, was talking a little bit about this. And there's certain people from the Ukraine and that part of the world that have this special type of blood that's not found anywhere else. So there are other types of blood that we're not even being told about by mainstream knowledge, but certainly, and of course, once you could go into hybridization, there's probably factors that they're not even letting us know about.
I've heard of golden blood, which is like a Rh null, I believe, type, and that doesn't have any A, B, or O blood group or plus or negative factor.
How about that time when you went into an altar when you were a kid and you got into a fight? So you most likely do have altars, and I guess I want to mention that because if you were involved in these programs, they probably did shatter your mind at one point, but maybe they were a little bit more humane about it.
I know that was an older method of control of separation, to separate the conscious by shattering it through trauma. But they have new mechanisms, and I don't believe I was traumatized in that way. I think I was the newer method done, because I don't have any memories of being tortured or anything like that. But I can continue with the memory if you like.
Yes, please.
So I was at my school. I was about 10 years old, and some of my classmates, the popular kids, were all in Taekwondo. I walked up to them and I asked them if I could play with them, and they said, sure. They said we were playing a game. I said, what game are you playing? They said, the goal is to knock the other person on the ground. I said, okay, I'll play. And as soon as I said that, the first guy jumped on my front, tried to take me down. And not just a couple seconds after that, someone jumped on my back, and then someone jumped on me from the side, and then I blacked out. And when I woke up, I was like maybe like 40 feet away from where they were. And someone was like, "How did you do that? How did you do that?" I didn't know what I had done. So I looked back, and I seen one of the guys was like 20 feet away. One guy was 10 feet away, and one guy was right on the ground. They were all on the ground, but they were far away from where I was when they attacked me. Yeah, that happened.
Other people have approached me over the years and said that they would. One guy, he was in a bar and somebody approached him to get into a fight. The next thing he remembers, he blacked out and there was like a group of people staring at him like in shock. And the other guy was on the other side of the room. I think there are some people out there. If you had experiences like that, you most likely been involved in these programs. But it's not normal to black out like that. I don't even know if you want me to talk about this. Was some more about your Area 51 experience. Are you allowed to talk about the EDF?
Earth Defense Force, they mean?
Yeah, that's who that was, Area 51?
No, that was a different program as far as I know.
You were in the EDF.
Yeah.
Have you talked about that yet?
Yeah, that was my 13 and a half to 16 years old. Or sorry, that was 16 to like 19.
Because my notes said you were taken to Area 51 at a TLB-6, and you were taken to a mountain in a circular elevator, and the room was 100-foot wide and tall. And then you started working EDF and did telemetry. In the bunker, there were 3 rows of computers and large wall screens. You monitored the atmosphere, and then you would interfere with the connections of different ships and flight mechanisms for other races that are not allowed on this planet.
Yeah, that's Earth Defense Force right there.
Yeah, so they would shoot gamma rays, hypersonic. They would go super fast between frequencies, and these ships couldn't calibrate, and they would crash. And then the team would go in to get them. So EDF was responsible with the retrievals.
Yeah.
And do you think this group is more positive or is just neutral?
Well, positive for they prevent pirates and stuff like that from taking stuff from the planet.
Yeah.
They do that, so that's positive. What they do with the beings after might not be positive.
In my notes here, it says, we started to work at an extraction team. We would go up into the craft, but not inside the craft. And you said, I was there. I was 2 years younger. You're using telepathy and telekinesis as part of the extraction team. I don't know. And you said I wasn't there, but maybe in this regression just shows you. I think, David, it's time you start to write a book because you got a lot of experiences here. Have you ever worked with looking glass technology?
Yes, but I don't have good memory of it enough to talk about it.
Can you tell us what it looks like?
There's a containment field that surrounds a portal. It looks like a portal, but it's kind of like a shimmer of, if you can imagine mercury, a screen of mercury that's moving. It's difficult to describe, but yeah, that's kind of what it looked like. There were a couple of them, but most of them were destroyed or taken.
And did you see into the future?
Yeah, you can see like the probability gets reduced the further ahead you look. But if you look at things that are going to happen in like 5 minutes, that's pretty accurate. The probability of that happening is pretty high. But as you look forward further and further into the future, it becomes less and less accurate.
They have a similar technology like this in the Baguette Mountain facility, and that's where those giants were. Giants used to use it pre-Atlantis period or something like that. But in that particular facility, there's a holographic technology that allows you to see into the future, and you could ask it to show you the future. And some people have actually done this. When the machine turns on, it shows them all potential realities. And the problem is that the human brain is not capable of handling that much knowledge. So these people go crazy. So when you use this particular type of technology, you have to be very specific and ask for a specific timeline and, and not ask for all possibilities because you go nuts. Anything else you want to comment about that?
That's about it.
Somebody wants to know how we can develop psionic abilities like you have. And I really think we might need to say that for another show. Maybe you can answer it real quickly. I don't know.
I can answer it real quickly, but maybe in the future we can have another session and we can get in deeper.
I think that's a good idea. Okay, just if you could just give like a sentence or two on it.
Okay. If you want to manifest your sensitive abilities, the first thing you need to do is heal yourself. Go back into your past, heal traumas, remove conditioning that you have, fear-based conditioning like limiting behaviors that say you can't do this or only Jesus can do that or whatever. Remove pretty much all religious conditioning that you have firstly, and then decalcify your pineal gland. And you can use Haritaki powder for that. That's about it.
Did you want to start doing your channeled session now? Are there any beans that are coming through, David?
I'm just about ready to go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be channeling. So I'm going to match my frequency halfway with an individual that wants to communicate with me telepathically. And then we're going to begin channeling. So they're going to speak through me, if you're not familiar with what channeling is. So I'm going to be taking a back seat. They're going to be speaking through me with their message, whatever that is, okay?
To whom do I have the pleasure of speaking with?
It is me, Simone. Hello, James.
Oh, hello, Simone. Welcome to Super Soldier Talk, and thank you for joining us. Did you have any specific messages you'd like to share?
For everyone watching, we would like you to know that we are here watching, and we want what is best for you and your planet. We understand that in your development, it is important to experience such traumas that you're experiencing. But as you move through the vibrational planes in consciousness, you will be able to experience less and less of these traumas. Know that you can experience love and light and experience greatness in your control over your emotions and self. We want you to know that many of you are experiencing dark times as we see, that there is hope for even those that are lost in the deepest chasms of their mind. We feel your emotions and we understand you and your troubles. Please understand that we want what's best for you, and what guidance comes from us comes from our hearts to yours. We share our emotions and expressions with you to help you on this dark path so that you may move forward into the light. We understand that many of you are emotional at this time, and that is okay. Allow these emotions to flow through you to express your heart's compassion and desire so that you may heal. Crying is healing. It's releasing trauma from your heart chakra and throat. So just remember that whenever you cry, it is okay. Are there any questions?
First of all, where are you from?
I am from my mother and father, but we come from the Plajara system, which is in another reality. So we are strangers, you might say, to this experience, but we come here with love and understanding.
Did you grow up in the Pleiades or on a spaceship?
The majority of my life was spent in another, we do not have the terminology at this time, but we will say reality bubble. And when I came of age and understanding, I was able to move from one reality bubble to another, which allowed me this experience to work with humans and other beings of the collective so that I can move forward in my own personal development, but also with those that are around me.
Why does your group of Palladians have such a bad reputation? In particular, I'm referring to the interactions with some of the Nazis and giving them technology in exchange for sex, and what happened with Billy Meyer, which I know you're not responsible for.
Well, as mentioned before, we are here to help. And at that time, there are individuals who are interested in help greatly, and they made favorable exchanges with us in order to possess something that they did not have. We were open and compassionate to them to help them. And in exchange, they received something which we did not foresee that they would use for such intentions. Now, understand we have the ability to, we will say, feel what the individual who is communicating us is feeling, but also our understanding of humanity at that time was not as great as it is now. But know that we had full intention of helping whoever desired help at that time with little limitation. But now we see the error of some of our ways.
Apparently, I heard that Jesus was part of your group, or was genetically engineered by your group. Is that correct?
The one who are you referring to as Jesus is, we will say, an oversoul. The individual that came forward is only a fractal of such a being and did not have the power or capability of the full functioning conglomeration of the soul. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So he could have had a lot more superpowers if he was more connected.
If he had more fractals of his consciousness, then yes.
Can you confirm that he was created through genetic engineering by your group?
The vessel was created, the physical container of which the soul was harbored.
I would love to explore that more, but I had some more relevant questions. So let's move on here. I was wondering, what do your ships look like and how big are they and where are they parked?
We will not disclose that information of where we park the vehicles, but we can say that we have several models of craft that we use for different reasons. Scout ships, biological ships, hospital ships, we will say, and each has its individual purpose. So individuals are taken aboard hospital ships for hospital reasons. Each ship is different, and there are a variety of models as well. Also, we have worked with your government and do to limiting capacity. So we have access to some of the craft that is available for them as well.
What do you think of our Earth politicians?
We do what we can to not get involved in politics, as there are many exopolitics already happening right now that we are involved in, and we do not wish to interfere in any human politics, as our say may go further than an average person, one may say. So we do not wish to sway in any which direction for politics.
I guess more specifically, I was wondering, how does the political situation compare? Like, how does your governments compare to Earth-based governments? Do you think it's more ethical? Do you have politicians that lie and cheat and manipulate you?
No. Politicians on our planet are chosen by consciousness. That means that a person of low consciousness cares for material things more than someone of higher consciousness most often. Lower vibrational properties like lower chakral elements, so you can say the foundations of life, power, control, sexuality, all of these are functions of lower consciousness beings, but they also have other properties as well. But no, when someone is of a higher consciousness, we have access to higher functioning qualities of chakras, which allows us more access to the heart chakra, the throat chakra, and the third eye chakra, and the crown chakra. When one operates from higher functioning chakras, it allows them for a higher perspective, including ethics, morality, judgment, caring, love, and compassion. Our politics are based off of these models, and these models allow us to live happily, doing what we wish to do with our lives. Do you have any other questions?
Do you have any information if President Trump has visited any galactic ships or even visited SSP ships?
As we stated before, we do not wish to communicate regarding politics at this time, because this can cause favor for one individual or another in a political standing, and this can cause sway. Do you understand?
Understood. What do your ships look like?
This may be difficult to describe because of a lack of vocabulary. We will speak of our scout ship. It is approximately 30 feet by 30 feet. It has a red dome on the top of the ship with rings of silver-like metal that move downward towards the exterior of the ship. It has a ring of lights, but these are not lights. These are technology that we use to propulse the ship in different directions, and it emits a photon while it is active. This also emits a blurry field which surrounds the craft. So for you to look at the ship, it would look blurry. This is often picked up by pictures and imagery of photography and satellite imagery. On the bottom of the craft, there is another red half sphere. This is the top and the bottom of the ship. It is shaped like two symbols on top of each other that are touching on open face. These red units that run along the inside of the craft, they have to do with our propulsion system. Are there any other questions?
How long does your race typically live?
We would say I am currently 200 years of age of your Earth years, and Samyasi is approximately 206, almost 207. Her birthday is in December.
How long do you guys live for?
It's about 300 years.
Do you use technology to re-age yourself once you get to the end and be young again?
Oftentimes, 300 years is enough experience, and we move forward from this physical vessel into the next experience, as we have oftentimes learned many lessons through this 300-year period.
Like, what are some of your day-to-day tasks and duties aboard your vessel?
Working with the light soldier program, we will say, or just generically.
So, like, you're responsible for overseeing missions?
We drive missions, yes. And we do have communication with select government individuals who are responsible for directing prerogatives and mission, we will say, outcomes.
So what are some of the conflicts that you typically find out in the universe? They usually call upon you for your help.
Well, with this particular group that we are working with, the channel, we maintain a balance between the planet Earth and the individuals that are temporarily staying on the planet for refuge. So this is the role of our group at this time.
Have you been tasked with rescuing any children from, say, like an underground base that are being held captive against their will?
No,
Do you have any information on what happens when we die? Some people would describe a white light. Is that connected to a computer on the moon that erases our memories for our next incarnation?
We do not want you to associate the white light with something to be afraid of. Understand that if this is the case, then many people will be afraid to die. Many people will not know, what do I do if I cannot go into this light? And for this reason, we choose to not answer this question, although we do have the answer.
Well, can you confirm that there's technology on the moon that erases our memories?
It is not the technology of the moon or the base within it, but the experience of living in a third density reality that removes the memories after a new incarnation exists.
So does your race recall your past life memories?
No, not all of them, but some, yes, which allows us to, we will say, select memories come through to allow us advancement in our individual lives. It is beneficial, but it can be a lot to remember too many past lives if your consciousness is not able to absorb information on a quantum level.
So what is your connection with David?
David is a co-worker and a friend. He works with us and he has some relation as well.
Do I have any connection as well?
On a soul level, you are aware of our connection.
Yeah, so apparently you're my twin flame. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, you're doing phenomenal work. Keep up the excellent work. Have you ever been on planet Earth before, like interacted with humans?
Yes, on several occasions.
And if you were to appear to a human, would you look just like us?
Yes, many humans cannot tell the difference.
What do you think about humans in general from your interactions with them?
Humans have a capacity for good. They have a lot of, we will say, options to experience if they desire. This is something that is not able to happen on other planets through other experiences. And humans have the ability to experience dark polarities or light polarities or neutral polarities and commit acts and change their professions often. They often have much love and family and expression, but we do see the negative sides of humans as well. It often comes from a negative perspective, which drives an individual down a pathway that leads them to darkness. But we will say to these individuals that in order to change your path, you must first shift your perspective to that of a light and loving perspective, to see things in the brighter side rather than the darkness. And to help you through those dark times, you may say, I am the light, says the channel. During these dark times, if you are lost, you can look towards the sun. Remember, the sun is not just a ball of energy. It is light, it is love, and it is expression. So when you connect to this, just know that there is love in your life to find. There is love out there, and it just will take a shift of your perspective to experience it.
Can you confirm that this drawing is actually you?
We know which drawing you're referring to. It has many similarities to me, but it is not identical. A couple of my physical attributes are different. I have a wrist communicator like this, yes. My patch is somewhat similar, although it varies from mission to mission. My hair is long at this length, yes. My eyes are similar. I look a little bit older than this. My uniform is also similar at times.
Could you answer another question? When are you going to show your ships to us, to the public?
Yes, individually or non-terrestrials in general?
Well, just to humans in general, like stop cloaking your vessels so we know you're there. Are you going to stop doing that anytime soon?
This does happen from time to time. And many vessels have been exposed, revealing ships. Also, there are shows that are displayed in your skies and are observed by many. These are often suppressed and not allowed to see the light of day, we will say. So the poem of the Dalai Lama, which we will refer, it is something that is of beauty, of understanding, and it shows the potential for human consciousness, that one is able to access higher realms despite being in a physical, limited, three-dimensional body. And this is the beauty of the poem. This individual that is writing it, this Dalai Lama, is an advanced being and one that I have a personal connection with. So this is the reason for the depiction in the drawing.
World peace must develop from inner peace. Peace is not the absence of violence. Peace is the manifestation of human compassion.
The channel is becoming uncomfortable.
Do we need to discontinue? Is it time to go?
It is time to go.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Simone. Blessings, love, and light to you. Thank you for participating. Love to hear you back someday. So thank you.
And you will. Blessings to all of you. We hope you find your way into the light, to see the lighter perspectives of life, to see all the beauty that is held within. And when you do see this, know that this is a reflection of your inner beauty. We will go now. We love you. We express our kindness to you and wish to communicate with you further in the future. If that is okay.
Yes.
Very well. We will go and return the channel.
Welcome back, David. What does it feel like when you do that?
It's like she sits over me like an overlay, and I can feel her energy. She can feel mine. She can move my body if she wants. But when I open my eyes while I'm channeling, it causes me to, I don't know, question my reality. Like, what is real? Am I channeling now? I don't know. So that's why I always keep my eyes closed while I'm channeling.
Makes sense. Well, thank you very much for doing that. We're definitely over 45 minutes, so I don't want to hold you up much longer. It's all been positive. Yeah, I mean, sometimes I get guests on here, and a lot of the audience members, are being skeptical, but so far everybody is very positive towards the message that you shared here today. And I just want to say thank you for being brave and coming on here. I would love for you to come on again because, I've got tons of notes from those sessions that we've done. Of course, I mean, some of this is probably private, confidential, maybe shouldn't be discussed in public. Maybe we can bring you back on in the future. Did you have any other final comments? How about maybe I could show your website? I said I was going to do that at the very beginning.
So guys, I do healing sessions on people. If you want to check out my website, it's going to be in the link in the description below. And we do a bunch of different stuff, psychic surgery and all that jazz. So here's my website on Wix. You can email me with what you're interested in. And yeah, we can do a bunch of stuff together. Or I could just teach people how to activate their abilities and stuff as well. Just remember, the more you heal yourself, the more you're going to activate yourself, your sensitive abilities, and the more you're going to become one with your higher self, which is where you really obtain your enlightenment. So if you've made it this far, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if we get a bunch of comments to have me back, then I'll come back.
Maybe we should bring you back on here to finish talking about the 1860 experience. As somebody was mentioning about the mystery of the airships, the early SSP infrastructure. I actually posted something about that. There were reports back around the 1890s of these giant levitating craft that people would hear music from. And then suddenly you just don't hear stories about it. They just disappeared. So be curious to kind of learn more about that. But anyway, so thanks again, audience members. Thank you, David. And I guess, again, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Visit supersoldiertalk.com. Of course, we got these videos up there, but there's other articles and content. And visit neologicaltech.com to support the work that I do. And of course, visit David's website as well. Until next time, thank you, audience members.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, David.
Thank you,
And
James.
goodbye.